Welcome back to Let's Talk Tuesday. This is the podcast where we have real conversations about learning, leadership, and what it truly takes to help people and organizations grow. Each week, we bring together different perspectives, experiences, and voices to explore what learning development really means, why it matters, and how we can do it better. Today, we have a very special guest, Lindsay Friedman from Cleveland, Ohio, who has over 30 years of experience in caregiving, being an expert in long-term care, and assisting families through it all. Welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you so much for having me, Amanda.
I'm so excited you're here. Let's talk. So tell us a little bit about your background and what your focus is today.
So, my background is as soon as I got out of high school, I was a nursing assistant. I started taking care of elders, worked in memory care, even in hospice, and had always had this passion to serve that demographic. And as I got older, I became my grandmother's family caregiver. And I realized that as ready for that as I was actually not prepared at all because that whole dynamic changes. And I saw that it's not just about physical care, there are financial, legal, there's so many moving parts. And I actually had created a startup that is still up and running called Care Bloom from that experience. And as we started releasing Care Bloom to market, I started really interacting. I became a senior care advisor and was working very closely with families. And I realized everything I had experienced on this planning part, every single family who was there was going through. And so
Mhm.
I created LT Care Nav to serve that market and to help break down long-term care, make it more accessible, and make planning part of the process to make the rest of it easier for families.
Wow, that's so important because a lot of times people are not prepared, right? If it's an accident or even if they're older and something comes about, I love your part of how there's different components to it than you would think of than just actual physical care. What does learning and development mean in your world? Because you jumped straight in from high school and now you're in this company. So what does learning development mean in your world?
So for me, when it really comes to the people we're serving, because that's where I'm really focused, is that ability to learn and understand what you're going to be facing. Because if you are not there today, at some point you will either care for your loved one or you're going to need care. And really helping people understand that this is not making a plan does not mean it's inevitable that you're going to a nursing home. And really kind of changing the conversations. So when we look at this, we proactively start to plan earlier, and it's just part of everyday conversation. And so really kind of training people to look at this differently.
Yeah, I love that because you said I actually wrote down the word proactive as you right before you said the word proactive because that's really what it is. It's like a will like anything else. It's here's what I want my future goal to look like and how do I prepare myself, my family for that. Why do you think learning development is so important, especially in today's world? And how does it relate to, I don't know if you have nurses that go to out to people these days, or how does that relate? Like, how do you tie that piece in?
So we have taken a different approach. We are actually a platform you can come to do the preparing, to do the learning. We are very heavy in information down to where you live, down to the county. All of these things make a difference into what your care is going to look like. So we're a really educational site that helps you understand all of your options. And then what we do when it comes to sending out nurses, we actually have partnered with vetted providers that can serve you in a way that we've already taken care of vetting them. We understand your needs. We actually understand if you can even afford these folks. So we're making good recommendations. And that's kind of how we start to integrate into what that looks like to activating your plan. How can you make it actionable?
I love that. And because I definitely have a bias for action. And I love the fact that, what you're saying is basically the critical component here is educating them, not just all the buckets they have to think about, but how to, and really walking them through and having that guidance and educating themselves up to in order to be prepared. What do you wish? I normally ask, what do you wish companies knew or did differently as it relates to learning development specifically? So, to translate it into your world, we'll talk a little bit about would you rather talk about the individual person going through the training, or would you rather talk about like the nurses who are going to, or and the caregivers who are going to be bringing your care plan to life?
Probably the families, because that's really where my focus is. It is not how we monetize the site, it's free for families. But my drive and my passion's always been about serving them. So if we can, so focusing there is really where my passion lies and what I'm really trying to accomplish.
That's great. And when it comes to, it sounds like obviously you're very passionate about skilling people up, training them on what's available to them so that they know and they can make more informed decisions and better decisions and not feel so overwhelmed. What would you say are some actual steps that people can do today in order to set themselves up for success tomorrow?
So I think the first step is if you haven't had the conversation with your family member, either adult child to parent, parent to adult child, whatever that relationship, those kind of things look like, have the conversation. It literally starts with one question. Hey, mom, I was just thinking, as you get older, what does independence look like to you? What does success? How do you picture these years of your life? Do you want to be at home? What does looking at home look like? One question can trigger a bunch of questions, and each one will help move you forward to creating that plan.
Yeah, I talk a lot about this with corporations and goals. It's a similar thing. It's you need to get the ideas out first, then you can reverse engineer and say, okay, this is how we get there if that's what it looks like. And then throughout, every 1, 5, 10 years, you refresh and say, here's where we're at now. Are we on target to meet this plan? Are we not on target to meet this plan? Do we need to adjust? Does the vision look different, right? So you said, do you want to be at home, mom? Well, today in her current state, she might want to be at home, and in 5 years from now, she might not want an entire house. She might want to live in an apartment somewhere where she doesn't have to think about the roof or the yard or whatever the case may be, right? So it's also being flexible enough to adjust and adapt. What would you say the cadences that you typically have your families look at that plan?
And I think in corporations, 5 years is great, right? Like if you have a good plan and you're executing on it, family situations are very personal. I would tell you that 5 years is probably going to be too long for most. And I would say anytime there is a change in health, a change in financial situation, a fall, a change in where your children live. If you find out one child who you were going to rely on is moving across country, that's a change that you didn't plan for, and that's going to create a whole new plan. So it's really life milestones when you start to hit them or where you start to see this. Every one of those things are going to require a new conversation to make sure the new situation fits into the plan.
It's so true because you can have a plan and then something happens, right? So I actually recently had this funny, timely conversation because my mom took a fall. We're horseback riders. She fell off her horse. She lives out of state. So I've been living in the world of trying to help her through this. And it's interesting to see from my perspective, because my whole world is learning development, to see all the different nurses and doctors and caregivers and how they talk to their patients, how do they talk to the families, and then from our perspective as the family members, trying to figure out where do we find information from, how do we skill up on this thing that was not on our radar, was not on the goal list this year, and adjust accordingly. So I really like and appreciate what you're saying about there's the ideal, there's the planning and getting as proactive as you possibly can. Love that word. And then it's the reactive when life actually happens and an accident happens or something goes wrong. How can you skill up quickly? How can you get grounded to what the next step would be?
Absolutely.
Well, we try to keep these short and sweet, so I'm going to start wrapping up here. Thank you so much for taking the time to come give us your lens and the world that you're in. I love how passionate you are about helping people. We share that passion, and it's great to see all the good that you're putting out in the world. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate being able to do this with you. And thank you to everyone listening. And anyone listening, if you do come to ltcarenav.com/podcast, we're giving away a free ebook. and 25% off Care Bloom, which is a caregiver support tool. So that's available to all your listeners.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I will make sure to have that in the show notes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we'll begin to wrap up. So I hope this discussion gave our audience a few new perspectives, sparked some ideas, and left you with at least one takeaway you can put into action immediately. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and join us every Tuesday as we continue exploring learning, leadership, and what it takes to help people and organizations grow. And if today's conversation resonated with you, or if you'd like to join me for a future episode, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and let's talk again on Tuesday. Thanks, everyone.